On today's episode of the CRUBCAST, because we did a Nintendo ragebait episode, we're going to do a PlayStation Xbox ragebait episode. Welcome to this week's edition of the CRUBCAST, your weekly dose of controlled chaos here in podcast form. My name is Kevin. I'm here with two of the sexiest co-crubbers that we have of the 8 of us today. I'm here with M. Hi, M.
Hello.
And I'm here with Cass from That Trav Guy. Hi, Cass.
What's up?
So today, I don't know that we're actually going to do true rage bait, but we got a comment in our Twitch chat because we do stream these episodes live on Twitch as we record them. And this week, we didn't know what we were going to talk about. So someone brought up the strategies for PlayStation and Xbox heading into the next generation of consoles. And that got us thinking about Marathon, Highguard, Concord, and all of that stuff. So we'll probably talk about both those things here today. I was told to go first as far as the future of PlayStation, Xbox, etc. I think the Xbox future is relatively clear at this point for what they're going to do until they maybe sell the brand off, which is that they're going to do that hybrid Steam PC box thing that has Xbox on it. We've known that for a while. They announced what was the name? Project Xenomorph?
Nexus?
No, it starts with an H. I want to say it was
Helix.
In my head.
Helix,
yeah.
Yeah, it was Project Helix. We already knew all of the stuff they were going to do with that, but I guess the name made people think that they were doing something else or something. I'm not really sure why that made news other than
what would
being a
you
name.
even convey from Project Helix?
Well, they were like, we want to combine PC and console in like their vague statement.
Oh, okay, yeah, double Helix. Okay,
Yeah.
that makes a little sense.
Like it does, but a lot of people took that and assumed that there was more there than what we already knew, and that was interesting. So I don't have much to say on that front because at this point I'm kind of thinking that the Xbox brand could genuinely be spun off. I know Microsoft doesn't usually do that, but if we're truly all in on AI like they say that they are, this is costing them money. It's not making them money on the back end. It's not used for back end tech for them to force it in anywhere. So I don't know. That's them. Keep that quick for now. We'll kind of go around the table on Xbox in a sec. I've had a theory that I told you, M, about for what Sony will do to get around the chip shortages that we're currently going through, that we will continue to go through till about probably 2030. My theory has been that they stumbled ass backwards into a viable potential option, which is we know that they are planning a couple different SKUs for the PS6 based on what has been leaked. One is a regular PlayStation 6. One is functionally a PlayStation 5 Switch.
Yeah. So it's interesting looking at sort of what Sony's done because they're taking Nintendo's walled garden take, right? And we're seeing this sort of swapped philosophy over the last 10 years or so from Nintendo to PlayStation, right? The removal of PC games from Sony, and Sony used to be really open to ports and all this kind of stuff. And I don't know. It's interesting to look at where Sony is just kind of generally. And then with regards to their consoles, what they're going to be doing, it's so hard. It's so hard to kind of identify what's going to happen because we are experiencing the greatest RAM shortage that nobody seems to want to talk about, right? When we say RAM shortage, by the way, I mean that RAM prices, the module prices, the actual wholesale prices have raised by 800 to 900% in the past few months.
My RAM, we looked at this at one point. My RAM that I bought I had 32 gigs of RAM in my PC before. I said, I'm going to buy 32 more at some point in the last year. I paid $50 for the first set like 5 years ago. I paid like $60 for the current set like a few months ago. It is currently $300 for that RAM.
I'm checking the same now because I bought 120 gigs.
And that's
RAM.
DDR4 RAM. I don't use DDR5.
Yeah.
Like I specifically use the slower RAM to be general about it because it's there and it's cheaper and availability is the best ability.
If I bought the same RAM that I bought like 3 years ago, right now, it would cost me $900.
Yeah, it's insane.
Yep. Yeah. My RAM is also in the $600 to $900 range. And this is something that people just aren't really talking about. They're not really thinking about it. NAND's also, specifically NAND memory, is just shooting shooting through the roof. We saw that NVIDIA announced that they're going to be using their new card will be using NAND, and it'll be using 20 terabytes of NAND per card for AI data centers, and that they plan to sell 20 million of them, which just basically means that there won't be any RAM out there. So it's really hard when you look at consoles and say, well, what's any console going to be like? Boy, I don't know that there will be one. We're already looking at delays that are probably going to be 2027, 2028 before you can realistically get a thing out. If Valve manages to ship out their Steam machine, what is that going to look like, right?
That's going to be expensive.
Right, and we're already talking, like, so we brought up the Xbox stuff. There have been quite a lot of people who have predicted, based off of what they've seen from internal stuff and sort of the DRAM prices and the RAM prices and the ambition that they're talking about, that the new Helix, whatever it ends up being, might be over $1,000.
Yeah.
Right? It might be a $1,200 unit. And if Microsoft launches a $1,000 console, then they are consciously exiting the market.
Yeah, and to be fair, I have kind of felt they already were doing that. So to circle back to Xbox, I think one of the things that's interesting to them is we're seeing this strategy that, you know, might be also going out the door the way that the PlayStation PC strategy has now shifted potentially because of the Xbox stuff. I think it was already probably a thing that they were looking at before. But the Xbox stuff is a factor. But we have a bunch of Xbox exclusives that are releasing on PlayStation in addition to PC. So unless they're planning on pulling that back next gen to just their PC lineup, they're doing the same thing that has devalued their console and has devalued the PlayStation as far as like some PC players are concerned. Because that was the thing about the PlayStation PC ports was people aren't going to pay full price for a 2-year-old port. It doesn't matter how prestige the game is. PC players are happy to wait. B, the ports were not optimized. They were not great. And C, if you're selling God of War 2018 to try and get people to buy a PS5 for Ragnarok, there's not a huge crossover between the PC audience and the people that are going to be willing to buy a $500 console.
Yeah, I mean, there's so much to it, right? Like, there's this sort of just... The PC experiment from Sony failed because they half committed. Yeah. Right? There's no PC gamer who's willing to wait 18 months. They're going to move on. But more than that is that when we're talking about what that looks like, there is such a mental dissonance in the idea that I own a $3,000 gaming computer. I'm going to play God of War and go, wow, this looks so good. I should go buy a PlayStation. Right? Like, that just isn't how people work. When you've got if you have a gaming PC, you don't look at consoles as like a viable alternative to that. That's not something where you go, oh, the PlayStation is something I should definitely use and play and enjoy. You go, oh, look at that toy for my kids, right? Like, it's a whole different experience at that point.
It's pushing FOMO to an audience. Like, unless you're a PC player that has FOMO, it's not going to hit you. I will say there is an audience that I think that those probably did reach, at least with the first couple games, before the diminishing returns set in, which that audience was people who have the more benchmark Steam average specs. So a laptop from 2006.
Yeah, if you've got an older computer, if you're running things on a Chromebook, then
or Steam Deck even.
Maybe you would go, okay, a console makes sense. Like, it's the same reason why for me, like, the Steam machine is exciting, right? Because I say, oh, I can put $1,000 machine in my computer, in my front room, and I can play co-op games on the television. Finally, that's a cool, because like the Steam Link exists, but it's not great, right? So like having something that allows you to do that, to where I can play, Expedition 33 with my partner, that sounds cool. Yeah. So I have the same thing, but I'm even looking at it going, why would I buy a PlayStation? Of course I'm not going to buy a PlayStation. I'll wait for a Steam machine.
Yeah. I want to throw to you, Cass, in a sec, but I want to close out the thought I was going to say, which was regarding the two different SKUs of the PS6. My current stance, and this is just, I'm just giving a dumb gamer opinion. I have a feeling that the first PS6 SKU we see will not be the console. It will be the PS5 Switch model, because most likely a lot of the specs of that system are going to be fairly similar to what the PlayStation 5 already has secured as far as parts go. You might need a different type of you might need the what's the laptop RAM called? I forget the name. The smaller chips. You know,
I know what you're talking about.
I don't know the name. But I could see something like that being one of the differences where they have to secure that. But I think the one benefit that those systems have, and the Switch as well, is that although all RAM is getting more expensive, they tend to secure long-term contracts, and they also tend to use the cheapest available parts. So they are using, generally, parts that are not in high demand for the AI boom.
Yeah, thankfully, if you've got older stuff, or if you're using older stuff, it's not, whatever. You're not going to see it explode quite as badly as DDR5.
Yeah.
But at the same time, we are seeing just crazy prices. Yeah. Before we shoot over to Cass and let her say everything, I do want to say that I have a hot take here. I have a
let it rip.
So I think that the real reason that Sony pulled the PC has nothing to do with their walled garden hopes, right? I think it has to do with the fact that they don't like the idea, because they did it right after, they don't like the idea that the next Xbox will be able to play Steam games, which means that you would be playing God of War on an Xbox.
I think that has...
So you think it might be like a brand protection, IP protection sort of
I think that there were a lot of things happening, and they're looking at it going, wow, we're not getting a whole lot of PC crossover because we were idiots and thought that would ever happen. And then they were looking at, the value that they're bringing in. Because I do think that they were printing money. I think that this was printing money, right? I think that the Steam sales show that every time they were putting a Sony game on there, it was just printing money like crazy. But that doesn't bring somebody in who's going to buy 50 games on a thing that you get 30%, right? So when they're looking at all of these things, I really do think that it comes down to just a plain and simple, we don't like the idea of having our flagship tentpole icons of Uncharted and God of War and Sly Cooper on the Xbox.
I think
maybe this could be we're gonna transition because I had a finishing thought. Maybe this could be something that we could clip and have a good moment from, because I was reading a thing saying that PC sales for Sony games were only making up about 4% of their total sales. And that's why Sony's pulling their stuff from Steam.
So I think your hot take, M, is there's merit to it, because the current leadership within the PlayStation ecosystem are moving back to that. Like, they're more from the hardware side, and the hardware people at Sony have always been very protective of their hardware. Like to the point that Astrobot's director talked about having to make sure and get permission to make the PS5 into a spaceship for Astrobot and have it be broken apart, because these people are so protective of the work they put into those things. It's kind of like how we found out with Bluepoint that they wanted to do a Ghost of Tsushima game, and Sony very famously, to the point infamously, are hands-off with their franchise studios, with their marquee studios, rather. So they weren't going to give Ghost of Tsushima spin-off to Bluepoint because Sucker Punch would have to say yes. Famously, someone at Sucker Punch required there to be 2 Coles in PlayStation All-Stars, a good Cole and an evil Cole. That was a requirement to get Cole into their Smash Brothers, which is an insane thing. Anyway, I think there's merit to, we don't want our stuff on an Xbox system, because a lot of those folks are very protective of the brand, of the shield, we'll call it. I do think, to your point, Cass, we did see diminishing returns on the sales of those games because, they put out a bunch of weird ones. Like, there was a point of, hey, if you give us a budget for your PS5 game, you can put it on PC. Just tell us how much it costs. And so like Sackboy went to PC, but with no crossplay. And Sackboy is a horrible game to put on PC with no crossplay because it is Mario 3D World, but with it needs crossplay. It's online multiplayer 3D World. So I think that the diminishing returns plus I do think that plus the walled garden are also strong reasons as to why. I think it was more than one thing, especially because from the jump they were kind of like, hey, like in their fiscal statements, they were like, this is an experiment. We're going to see how it goes, and they saw how it went. And I guess the, 5 million Spider-Man sales or whatever didn't end up being worth it to them if it means that they get bad press anyway because they have to someone else is putting that dumbass you have to have PlayStation sign on, but only certain regions have PlayStation accounts. All that stuff, all the own goals they've done with PC. I think they probably just said, you know what, we kind of shit the bed. Let's just get out. But also, it's worth noting, this has been a thing for a while, but it happened to come out in more public fashion right after all of this news dropped about the PlayStation PC stuff mostly ending for single player games. They are doing dynamic pricing within their walled garden.
They are doing
one of the shittiest practices they've been testing for a while quietly, but it seemed to finally break containment. Then people outside of gaming
I called
spaces
that
saw
out.
it. Yeah,
back in November.
Yeah, it was a year or two before that. Even it's been going on for a while.
Yeah, nobody wanted to admit that they were doing it. So they're changing prices depending on who you are. So we don't know what they're using it. We don't know what algorithm they're doing. We don't know if they're choosing it based off of what you've bought and your activity. But we know that they are changing prices of games depending on who you are when you're signed in.
Currently, as far as we know,
it's really gross.
It's disgusting. Currently, as far as we know, it's the public facing, look at the good thing we might be doing. They haven't said anything about it, but that'll be the angle they would take of, we're giving sales to customers we think would buy a thing at this price, but not this price. So like Ghost of Yotei for some people was like $50 instead of $70 for like on sale, which it's a filthy practice. It's the reason that they're getting sued in multiple countries for not allowing third-party sales of their games on other sites. Like, you can't buy a game card like you can an eShop card for a Nintendo game on PC. You can't do that at a store. You got to buy a PSN card and buy it on PlayStation. And they've been getting sued about this for a while.
Wow.
They're sued in like 30 different countries.
Filthy
total.
Practice.
Reporting anywhere from a 5.3% to a 17.6% difference in pricing.
Yep.
That's ridiculous.
So I think that's honestly the biggest factor is them trying to pull that shit off. But I think all of these are factors, not to sit on the fence here. But with the timing of it, I don't think the Xbox thing is the whole thing, is my point. I think there is some ego there that is like probably that as well. But
I'm looking at this, and I don't work in this industry. I don't want to say things so definitively when I don't know anything. But I'm looking at this, and they're citing this one article is specifically citing Marvel Spider-Man 2 and God of War Ragnarok for being reasons why Sony is ditching PC. Their reasoning was that God of War Ragnarok peaked at 22,000 players on Steam, where the first game peaked on Steam at 73,000 concurrent players. And same with Spider-Man 2. The first game had 66,000 players at the first game's launch on PC, and then 2 only had 28,000. And I'm just thinking like, well, they were released later, and assuming that these are people who are in touch buying these games, which they're not always, but assuming that these are people who are in touch with the market, they probably, these games released a year later and had a whole year to, not pre-order these games and then find out that they were underwhelming in some capacity.
Okay, but I'll give you another number, which is that the estimated number of sales for that for Ragnarok, right? Even though it only had 20,000 live concurrent players or whatever, it's estimated to have sold 1.2 million copies. That's pretty good when you consider that it is a game that did not come out concurrent day one, and they didn't have to do anything. They just ported it over.
I'll throw out another element here. I think we're also maybe underestimating the element that this exact sort of video, we jokingly called it ragebait, but the evolution of ragebait content and outrage in the gaming space I think we're underestimating how much of an impact that can have on these things, because God of War 2018 is a beloved game. There are people that don't like that it changed, obviously. Spider-Man 1 is a beloved game, even though it always had problems. Ragnarok and Spider-Man 2 are much more controversial within very specific audiences. And I think those audiences, I would argue, tend to skew towards the uninformed PC gamer crowd. Not to say all PC gamers are uninformed, but specifically, I'm talking about like Reddit people. You know, I'm talking about the people that go on Reddit and say, well, why would they do this thing that's not specifically catered to me? And it's the people playing executive as well, which we're also kind of doing, but we're tongue in cheek about it, so it's okay. So I think that's an element too, is that, you know, there's these controversies with these games from the jump that are often just manufactured for the sake of YouTube clicks. And there are a lot of people that bite on that shit. So I think that also has an impact on things. I mean, we're talking about Steam concurrent player numbers for a goddamn single player game. Like, it doesn't matter.
That's what I'm saying is crazy about it, right? Like, forget the 20,000. It sold 1.5 million copies, which is pretty good. That's pretty good for just a random. If you could tell me, right, as a game developer, so I make a game and I put it on the PlayStation and it sells 20 million copies or whatever, and you say, hey, look, here's the deal. I can, for a few pennies, put this onto the Steam and you'll sell another 1 million copies. Why would you be unhappy with that?
Yeah.
That's insane. And the reason that people end up, you know, that Sony would look at that and go, oh, it's insane. They think that it should all be selling another 20 million copies, and then all 20 million of those people should be going and buying another PlayStation. Like, that's what's crazy about the Sony take. It's their problem. Oh, it really annoys me, because I look at this and I go, it's not how people work. Right? Yeah. This is the same problem that we have with like Square and how they look at the numbers. You know, oh, the game didn't sell 55 million copies. Of course it didn't sell that much. Of course it didn't. It's Hitman. Yeah, of course Sleeping Dogs only sold 3 million copies, but it sold 3 million copies. That's
There was
incredible.
a thing that came out today, Swear Jar. There was a thing that came out today about Sega saying like, oh yeah, our reviews have been better, but our sales haven't. And it's such an interesting, like, they're not saying that in like the we don't understand. They're just saying like the cause and effect has not happened yet. We've put out quality games more recently, but people don't trust us enough like they do Capcom. Capcom had this problem in 2008 to like 2012, where everything they put out was either Resident Evil and did well despite people not liking it, or it was everything else and it did poorly. And over time, they rebuilt their entire structure in a way that I think a lot of Japanese publishers and studios have molded and have adopted. And I've said this time and again, the way that they, you know, their renaissance has been proven rather, because they took the time to slowly grind at it and slowly just build trust with their audience. And now their audience, even if it's a game like Monster Hunter Wilds that maybe isn't super loved after release, people still trust them enough to buy 20 million copies of that game. Like, there's a trust there based on the review scores that builds over time, and Sega hasn't done that. I've said time and again, this is unrelated, that like I think this is the issue that like the Western gaming space is currently running into. It's the same issue that the Japanese gaming space ran into during the start of the HD era, where the budgets had grown so much, they had ballooned so much even prior to that, that we got to a point where they didn't know how to make a profitable game anymore because they were so bloated and they were trying to do so many different things with their games. And add in the fact that games were slowly becoming more, the market share was shifting more and more to the US versus Japan, where before, you know, you made games for Japan and we just played them because we didn't have a choice. Now we do have the choice, and we do play Japanese games more because they've proven that they can make quality games frequently on a budget that look really damn good. Western studios are currently in that reckoning that Japanese studios were in 10 years ago, 15 years ago, because a lot of Western studios are 15 years younger than a lot of the Japanese studios. It's the same thing that happened last time. Only the difference now is it's not a global recession because of a financial crashes. It's a global recession because of financial crashes. Totally different scenario.
Totally different.
Anyway, I think that's going to kind of bring us to like what we were going to talk about second, which was the Marathon, Concord, High Guard stuff. But Cass, I wanted to throw to you because I wanted to give you more time to throw out anything else you wanted to say about that, because we kind of just bounced around a bunch.
No, I said everything I wanted to say, really.
Okay.
We don't have to go back to it. In fact, I think that we should avoid going back to it because I'm really tired about talking about Sony because I hate them and I want them to die.
That's valid.
And now for our sponsor, Sony.
Thanks, Sony. I'll say to close out, I want to put in short phrasing my prediction that we said at the start, which was that I think the first PS6 SKU will be a PS5 Switch, and that will buy them time and success in regions where they haven't been super successful before they can figure out their production line for the PlayStation 6, their pipeline for it. That is my hunch. I think
that makes a lot of sense.
I just have a feeling that they have the parts almost ready. They only need to make a couple changes, and the Portal did way better than they expected.
It really did.
I was surprised at how well the Portal did.
I thought it would do okay. I did not think it was going to do like millions and millions of sales. I think it's like was it 5% of PlayStation 5 owners have a Portal?
Wow.
It's
that's a lot.
I don't know that it's 5%, so don't hold me to that number, but it's something way higher than anybody expected. Even me, because like that was one of those that like the Reddit audience was like, who is this for? Not knowing that some people are parents and have kids and want to.
Yeah, I mean, I think it makes perfect sense to have something like that. I think it makes a lot of sense. And watching how you used it, like it makes perfect sense in that case too.
Yeah, I have a Portal. I bought it for so cheap that it may as well have been free. It wasn't like a special deal or anything. I just got a very good deal from the retailer, and I really kind of like that thing. Like I just kind of got it because it was like, oh, I'm paying $20, sure. It is a really good device. It's got some issues. It doesn't have regular Bluetooth, but it has a wired headphone jack. That's a weird thing. They want you to spend on the $200 Sony earbuds that are proprietary instead of Bluetooth, which is dumb.
Right.
But the connection's really smooth. I only play it in the house, obviously, but if I'm playing it while we were doing CRUBCAST, and they were playing like Mario Party and Pokemon Stadium, and I was sitting there, the new God of War had come out, so I had to get some work done recording that. So I was using my phone from upstairs to any desk to my PC down here to hit the record button from this PS5 on my Elgato software while playing via stream upstairs on my Portal.
That's kind of cool.
And it just
that way you can
really
continue
neat.
to hang out.
Yeah,
it was great.
Like I was able to cohabitate with people while doing other stuff, and I thought that was a lot of fun. And it's the reason that thing exists. So I think that everyone's known for a while that having one of those things is going to be a good thing for everybody. So I think
so we'll see what the PS5 Switch looks like.
It'll have a stupid name. I don't know what the name's going to be. It's going to be real bad.
Ooh.
Yeah, it's going to be really dumb. I'm sure it has
the
P
PlayStation.
in it. It'll be the PSP. It'll be the PSP.
If they brought it back as the PSP, they would actually do really well. Like genuinely, I think
bet
that's the right
PSP.
move. Like that's
the
not
PSP 5.
That's not a bad name. I just have a feeling it's going to be like PlayStation, like how the VR headset was Morpheus for a while. Before they named it PSVR, that was just the code name. But it'll be like PlayStation.
Did they really call it Morpheus?
Yeah, that was the real name.
Wow.
Yeah, I don't know what the name's going to be, but it'll be bad. If it's not PSP, it's going to be bad.